say this every week, and every week it's true. We love you and we miss you and we long for the day when we can all be worshiping in this place together again. But between now and then, we're grateful for the interwebs that gives us an opportunity to worship with you virtually. And this morning, would you let us know that you're there? Let us know how we can pray with you. Let us know what God's doing in your life, and let us know how we can come alongside you as we all face these days together. As we dive into worship this morning, we know that God has done great things. And right where you are, if you would share one thing with those you're worshiping with, one great thing that God has done in your life. And if you're by yourself, just shout it out to God. Shouldn't take more than 2 to 3 seconds. So let's everybody do this together. 1, 2, 3, go. The Lord has done great things for all of us in the past. He's doing great things in these days, even though we may not be able to see them. And he certainly will do great things in us, for us, and through us in the days ahead. The psalmist sang, "The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy." So let's remember the great things and sing out with joy to our great God.
Your name lifted high, oh God. life you live, no greater gift, no, not one. Come on. No brighter star has ever shined, no better hope for all mankind, no higher mind, no, not one. No one has ever known this kind of love you show. There has never been a greater love than your son, no, not one. And there will never be a name above, no, not one. And with his life you have forgiven us. Hope has come, hope has come, and there will never be a greater love, no, not one. No image true or sweeter frame, no simple word can match your name, no greater fame, no, not one. No one has ever seen the depth of your majesty. There has never been a greater love than your son, no, not one. And there will never be a name above, no, not one. And with this life you have forgiven us. Hope has come, hope has come, and there will never be a greater love, no, not one. No greater call. You gave us all a reason to live, no greater love. You gave us all a reason to give, no greater life. You gave us all a reason to shine, no greater love, forever mine. There has never been a greater love than your son, no, not one. And there will never be a name above, no, not one. There has never been a greater love than your son, no, not one. And there will never be a name above, no, not one. And with his life you have forgiven us. Hope has come, hope has come, and there will never be a greater love, no, not one.
My name is Evan Henson, and I'm the Associate Pastor of Student Ministries here at First Lubbock. Paradigm Chats is a new weekly video series we started. In the midst of this pandemic, we've been trying to find different ways to reach out to our college students. And so instead of just doing a full service like we would on a normal Thursday night, we've decided to have a more conversational discussion about different topics. And so we opened up talking about fear and anxiety. We've done series on what does it mean to be a church member. We've done what is the Bible. We've talked about worship, and then we'll be doing one on community coming up. The biggest need is if we're not providing resources, then the next place to go is Google. And so we wanted to offer things that were worthwhile for our students. We want to be good stewards of their time, even though they've got extra time now maybe than they had before. We still want to be good stewards of their time, and so we had to come up with a way that how can we reach them geographically where they're at, but then how can we reach them emotionally where they're at and spiritually where they're at. And I don't take for granted that we're at a church with the resources to offer something like this, that we have media team that can put these things together well. And we have Johnny and Josh that can help me lead these things. And we have other staff members that are so readily willing to help college students and talk with college students, even if it is from a distance through a computer screen. Yeah, so it's been interesting to hear from a few of our students and even our volunteers on, not that they got confused and thought they were in Paradigm, or not that they got confused and thought they were sitting in the room with Johnny and Josh and I, but the connectedness that we can feel even if they're in Dallas or Houston or Austin, as we've spread apart the state and even across our country. It's been fun to hear about the ways that they've connected with us through this, and then also the way that we feel connected with them, particularly the week that we did Easter. We decided to do something a little different. And so Johnny actually led worship, and I taught from a scriptural passage similar to what we would do at Paradigm. And then we all gathered on Zoom afterwards, and I had about 25 of our college students that joined us on Zoom and just hung out and chatted about Holy Week and how things were different this year, but how we were still able to reflect corporately on what it means to serve a risen Lord. And so it was a fun way for us to connect, for us to see their faces, even if it was through a Zoom call, but to be able to use these Paradigm chats and these Paradigm videos as a conduit to get to see some of our students that we haven't seen in a couple months now.
One of the most widely known and loved passages on God's love in the entire Bible was shared with us from the pen of the Apostle Paul when he wrote, "Who or what shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword?" I would add, shall COVID crisis or no sports or no large gatherings like worship with our entire church family in this location all at one time? The Apostle Paul says, no. In all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation, neither lack of Clorox wipes or constant strain from the kids in the house or the craziness of new math or not getting into presentable clothing for days on end or no hugs from those outside our home or big weddings or proms or band or choral concerts or gathering with our Bible study fellowships on a weekly basis to study God's word in community, in person, and on and on and on we could go. None of that, or the lack of any of that, can ever separate you and me from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus, our Lord. You see, Jesus is all powerful. He's all knowing. He's all everywhere, all at the same time. And he's also all loving, completely loving, unbelievably loving. And so the wonder and the mystery of his allness must be seen through the lens of his amazing, incredible, never-ending, always pursuing love for you and me. Let's celebrate his love right now as we sing.
Who can heal the blind man? Oh, who can raise the dead? Who can part the water and set my feet on dry secures my future. Oh, who forgives my past? Who tears the veil of darkness and tramples over death? Stop what you had started. No other love could ever take your place. You spoke a word and made a mockery of darkness. There is no rival standing in your way. No power on earth could ever stop what you had started. No other love could ever take your place. You spoke a word and made a mockery of darkness. There is no rival standing in your way. No power on earth could ever stop what you had started. No other love could ever take your place. You spoke a word and made a mockery of darkness. There is no rival standing in your way.
Amazing love that welcomes me, the kindness of mercy that bought with blood wholeheartedly my soul undeserving. God, your You're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me.
Behold the cross, age to age, hour by hour. The dead are raised, the sinners saved, the work of your power. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me.
You're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. I am blessed, I am called, I am healed, I am whole, I am saved in Jesus' name. Highly favored, anointed, filled with your power for the glory of Jesus' name. I am blessed, I am called, I am healed, I am whole, I am saved in Jesus' name. Highly favored, anointed, filled with your power for the glory of Jesus' name. And should this life bring suffering, Lord, I will remember what Calvary has bought for me, both now and forever. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. God, you're so good. Yes, God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. Come on, church, sing it out. Sing, God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good. you're so good. God, you're so good. Yes, God, you're so good. You're so good to me.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate our worship team and our media team that do such an outstanding job always. But these past 6 weeks, there's been an extra burden on them to produce a product, and they have done it in a very stellar way. I was looking at some of the images on the screen, and I'm sure that you, when you're at home at your computer on your TV screen, that you miss being in this room. And I want you to know that you're missed as well. I love the pictures, but it is certainly no substitute for us being here in person. But I appreciate so much all of you and your consistency and your faithfulness in sharing and inviting others. We've been amazed as staff just to see the growing footprint of our online presence and the feedback that we are getting from so many friends and coworkers, literally people around the world that are tuning in to our service. And so that's in no small way that's due to you and your consistent sharing and inviting of others to be a part of our service. So hopefully in the next few weeks, we will start hearing word from our local healthcare experts about when it might be a good time to start gathering together again in groups. As I said in the video, I think that will be something that is gradual and not fully as we have known it before, and some precautions that we will have to have in place. But we will roll that plan out to you as it is given to us by local healthcare officials, and it'll be very detailed. We will do it in a very thorough way in communicating with you, and so we're looking forward to that in the weeks ahead. And let me reiterate that our reference point, those that have our ear in this, and when we can gather again, it is local healthcare officials, local healthcare experts. We are not listening to politicians. We're not listening to the purveyors of their agenda. We are not listening to the national media. We're not listening to conspiracy theorists. We're not listening to marginal extremist groups. The only one that has our ear in this process of trying to discern when we can gather again safely as a church across our city is local healthcare experts. Doctors and nurses are the two most trusted professions in this country. And so we're going to listen to doctors and nurses and healthcare officials that have their ear to the ground on the progress of this virus and what is happening locally. And we will base decisions then being a good community partner in regard to our gathering together again. Well, as we think about returning, I think it's a good time for us to go to the book of Isaiah in chapter 60, because Isaiah chapter 60 is really a time of returning. Babylonian exile has ended, and there is a return to Jerusalem. And there was this anticipation, of course, as you can imagine, there was this anticipation that things were going to be as they were before. But as they returned to Jerusalem, all they found was desolation. They had found isolation. They had found that a great many had left. The city lay in ruins. It had been abandoned. And it wasn't near the triumphal entry that the people of God had anticipated after their season of exile. And so it was in that context where the prophet of God was inspired to speak to the people, to tell them and to challenge them to awaken their faith, that to the world around you, you need to be a messenger of good news, a messenger of hope. You need to be the ones that by your witness, by your example, you speak to the faithfulness of God. And so that's the context of Isaiah now. He's saying to the people of God, don't look at the circumstances around you. I understand your disappointment that things are not as they once were. It's not the triumphal entry that you were anticipating. It's more of a trickling in than it is a flooding in of people. But you need to be a people of vision. You need to be a people of hope. You need to have a faith that is awakened to the reality that God has his very best days in store for you. Well, as these first 6 verses unfold in Isaiah chapter 60, we find that such a faith is this, that when you and I awaken our faith, that through these days as our faith is awakened, as it is rekindled, as it is stirred in a way that perhaps it has never been before, that the significance of that kind of faith that God has entrusted to you, that is a faith that enables us as the people of God to rise up victoriously. Now, I want you to listen to the language and the tone of Isaiah, the prophet. I want you to hear his voice as he seeks to encourage the people of God who are surely disappointed that things are not as they anticipated, that things are not as they thought they would be. He says to them, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For behold, darkness will cover the earth, and deep darkness the peoples, but the Lord will rise upon you, and his glory will appear upon you." It's a season of global darkness, he says, but he says the glory of God, that is the weight of God. The glory of God is set upon you. It is resting upon you so that you might be a light to the world. With great emphasis, he says, your light has come. We are a people that are not in darkness. And in practical terms, if I truly believe this, that the glory of God is upon us, that our light has come, if I truly believe this, then is it not going to affect my outlook? Is it not going to affect my perspective? If I truly believe that the weight of God's glory has been entrusted to me to shine, that God's light is upon me, is that not going to affect the way I carry myself through this? Or any other challenging circumstances in life? Well, if that be so, if that be true, then the prophet says, get up, arise, take a posture of faith. When the world is despairing, when the world has a puzzled look of uncertainty and fear upon their faith, you arise. You let them see a posture of certainty and faith and assurance in your life, mentally, physically, spiritually. Look alive, look alert. Stand tall. Maybe our mothers were onto something. Stand up straight. Listen, avoid that vortex. Church, when we're out there in the world, when our neighbors are seeing us in our neighborhood, how we walk, how we carry ourselves, how we conduct ourselves, they need to see us avoiding that quagmire. They need to see us avoiding that spiraling vortex of darkness that seeks to consume us and pull us down into this hole and this vacuum. Avoid all of that mentally, physically, spiritually. Arise, stand up, assume a posture of faith. It's a mindset. Stand up tall. Hold your head up. And pull your shoulders back. Don't let the world see you fearful. You're my messengers. The weight of my glory is upon you. And in that weight, you rise up. You don't get beaten down. I can hear strength coaches from past, I can hear strength coaches today who are always emphasizing to their athletes in their time of off season and conditioning and lifting, you stand up straight, you carry yourself, you look like a champion. In fact, our strength coaches would oftentimes detect if they saw a player bent over and his hands resting on his knees, that's an extra 10 burpees. Just for showing a posture of fatigue and weakness. I mean, it's gone to such extremes in my mind. You know, even as a 62-year-old man today, and I work out every day, and when I'm working out, I try to push myself every day in my workout to get to a place where I'm tested. I want to get to a place every day in my workout where my brain is telling my body to quit. Because I'm training my mind. It's not the body, it's the mind that you're training. And to this day, even as a 62-year-old man, even in my fatigue, I will not put my hands on my knees. You don't want your opponent, you don't want the world to see you as weak, as vulnerable. At my stage in life, my biggest opponent is myself. But there has to be that mindset of how we as the people of God are to carry ourselves as victors for the cause of Christ. Now, this kind of faith that the prophet is speaking to, it enables us to rise up victorious, but it also endows us to illuminate influentially. To illuminate influentially. That is, for our faith to shine in such a way that those around us are influenced. The prophet says it this way in verse 3. He says, nations will come to your light. We understand that was the mission of Israel before they ever became exclusive. They failed to understand that God had called them apart and set them apart to be a light unto the world, that the rest of the nations might be drawn to them. And now in such a time as this, he says that has not changed. Nations will come to your light. This light that emerges from you because my glory is weighing upon you, and kings to the brightness of your rising. In other words, what the prophet is saying is people are watching you. Every day, especially if people know that you're a person of faith, that if you profess to be a follower of Jesus Christ, all the more then, eyes are going to be upon you. People are going to listen to you. They're going to look at your social media platforms. And they're going to discern something about you and certainly your faith by what they see posted, what they are reading. They're going to discern something about you and your faith. When they see you in the neighborhood walking around, when they walk by and see you in the yard and they converse with you, they're reading you. When frankly, most of the world is frightened, filled with uncertainty. They're going to look at you and they want to know what it is that has given you a sense of stability. Why is it that you seem to be unshaken by the things that have happened in the past couple of months? How is it that you are able to stay so positive and hopeful? Nations will come to your light. You know, one of the things that gave me so much confidence regarding you, church family, what gave me so much confidence about us going into a time such as this, the reason I was so confident in you, in your steadfastness and your faithfulness, is because I knew you were prepared for such a time as this. I knew that you had been trained. If you're someone that is in worship and coming to church and Bible study, if that is something that has been the rhythm of your life, if you've been here consistently year after year, Sunday after Sunday, I had full confidence you were going to be just fine through all of this, that you were prepared spiritually to deal with this. I knew you were ready. You'd been prepared. I've been telling you for 18 years that faith is something that prepares you when life blindsides you. And I talk often about something happening in your life. If it hasn't already, it will happen. That something that you would never anticipate that hits your life so hard, it will introduce a degree of pain and discomfort that you could have never imagined sitting here in a pew. And I would venture a guess that this pandemic has been that for a great many. See, that's one of the reasons as a pastor, as an under-shepherd of a congregation given the charge by God for your spiritual preparation and well-being. That's why I haven't sat up here Sunday after Sunday for 18 years and preached to you the flavor of the day topic. That's why I didn't offer to you just a steady diet of pablum of Father's Day sermons, Mother's Day sermons, Valentine's sermon, whatever else Hallmark seeks to impose upon us. Why I didn't observe every national holiday and talk about it, because if anything, this pandemic has revealed to us, hopefully once and for all, that the things of men do not last, they cannot be trusted, they do not stand the test of time. And so you have had a steady diet of God's word, of gospel truth, and it has prepared you for such a time as this. And I was fully confident going into this that you would weather this storm and come out of it all the more strong and all the more prepared for whatever next storm is resting upon our horizon. But another thing that we must be on guard about in understanding our influence, and listen, don't ever undersell your influence. That influence that you have in your respective world. That's why I speak so much about being on mission, where our feet are, and awareness of where our feet are. It's about influence. It's about people watching and reading and hearing and forming opinions about what it means to be a follower of Christ. And you and I must use our influence to speak from a biblical worldview. And I fear that it is something that has been lost by some professing Christians. It is speaking to issues and circumstances through the prism of a biblical worldview instead of a secular worldview. I'm sure you've heard it too in recent weeks, even Christians who are espousing some notion that somehow our not going to church is an infringement upon our civil liberties. And listen, understand that the decision that we made to not gather together, that was about being a good community partner. We never did it out of fear. We didn't make that decision because of government decree or mandate. We want to be good community partners. And yet I hear some using the language that us having done this, churches having done this, is some kind of infringement upon constitutionally protected freedoms. But the people of God, we have a long, rich history of setting aside our personal liberties, our personal freedoms for a greater communal good. Paul, in writing to the church at Corinth in chapter 10 and verse 23 said that all things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful, but not all things build up. Jeremiah said to those exiled people of God, he said, listen, you're going to be there for a long time, and you act and you pray for the welfare of the city. You need to act in a way that is to the benefit of everyone. You pray for the welfare of the city, for as they prosper, you prosper. So our desire through all of this is to be a good community partner. We've got to be very careful. It just shows the influence of a secular worldview that imposes itself upon us if we are not mindful, if we're not diligent, if we're not persistent in understanding a biblical worldview. I mean, even Plato, from a secular perspective, in Plato's Republic, he understood well that the demise of the idea of a republic, that the demise of a republic comes about when individuals start acting for themselves instead of for a greater common good. The people of God have understood that, as we saw in Paul's writing. The people of God have understood that in their worship setting, setting aside my own personal desires and for the well-being, for the building up, 1 Corinthians 14, for the edification, the building up of the corporate body, acting for the welfare of the city, Old Testament, New Testament. God's people have a long history of setting aside our liberties and our freedoms for the benefit of others. We've got to be very careful. We can't just take that kind of language of civil liberties and just interject it and demand it whenever we want and then deprive it of others. You see, we act as a people of God. The community of faith acts for a greater common good. Many of in forming a Christian ethic, as believers and followers of Christ, many of our ethics, our position on ethical issues are built around what is best for the fabric of community. You take the issue of abortion and pro-choice. The pro-choice crowd uses a secular humanist argument, a position of radical individualism excluded from the community, and makes the argument, does a woman not have the right to make decisions about her own body? And to reframe it another way, say, well, that's not really the right question. There's a much bigger issue underlying this. We're talking about the fabric of community. Let's change the language. You want to use the language of this radical individualism as if you're not part of a community, but let's take this woman and set her in the context of a community. And now then, let's frame the question this way. Does a mother, see the difference? Does a mother have the right to take the life of her son, unborn son or daughter? You see, those are community titles. That's how you develop the paradigm of a Christian ethic. And you can't just use the language of civil liberties if you're not going to allow some other group to use it to their own personal preferences as well. We're talking about the fabric of community. We are committed to being good community partners. You see, we need to assume our position of influence. People listen to us. They hear what we say and they form opinions and ideas of what it is to be a follower of Jesus Christ. But here's a final thing about this faith that Isaiah is speaking to. Not only does it enable us to rise up victoriously and to illuminate influentially, but it also empowers us to visualize, hopefully, listen to the language here, lift up your eyes round about and see. They all gather together. They come to you. Speaking of the nations, the peoples, your sons will come from afar and your daughters will be carried in the arms. Then you will see and be radiant, and your heart will thrill and rejoice because the abundance of the sea will be turned to you. The wealth of the nations will come to you. A multitude of camels will cover you, the young camels of Midian and Ephah, and those from Sheba will come. They will bring gold and frankincense and will bear good news of the praises of the Lord. I love those words to the people. Look up. It's what happens when we arise as the people of God. It lifts our level, our view. Lift up your eyes round about and see. Don't just look at ground. Don't just look at the circumstances as they are here in the present tense. Be a visionary people. Don't be like everyone else. Don't buy into the rhetoric of the crowd. Lift up your eyes and have a vision that transcends circumstances. It will influence the people around you. That's why Scripture says, where there is no vision, the people perish. We've got to be leaders in the world that cast a vision of hope. We've got to be messengers to the world that things like this is not it. This does not define our future. This might be our present tense, but there's more to come. God is still working. Where there is no vision, the people perish. If we don't have eyes to see more, the possibilities of what God is doing, we just become part of the crowd. And all the rhetoric of division, all the rhetoric of preferences, but our voice is always a voice of vision and hope for the future. Think about Israel. Israel, God's people of promise, when he finally delivers them from Egyptian bondage, they're in their wilderness wanderings and the complaining starts. And they were so blinded by their past, so blinded by the past when adversity came, when hardships came, they were so blinded by their past comforts, their past life that was so predictable and routine and mundane and ritualistic, same thing day in and day out. But it came to a point where that past offered comfort because it was familiar. And they were so blinded by the past and the preferences of their past, they didn't even have the faith to see the future that God had in store for them. That's why Isaiah says you need to have an awakened faith. All the more with great deliberateness, with great intentionality. Our faith needs to be awakened for the world around us to see, so that you and I might indeed be a vision of hope for this world. And especially for each one of us, the world around us that God has entrusted to us. Let's pray together. Our Father, how grateful we are for your word that challenges us, that puts us on the high alert, reminding us of who we are, the light that we are to be. A light not that we conjure up by our own willpower and determination, but a light that results from your glory coming to rest upon us. Oh, Father, this great privilege you have given to us, even in a time such as this, to be a people of vision and hope for the world around us. And Father, how grateful we are for our church family, for our preparedness for an event such as these days. And that, Father, you might use our commitment and our faithfulness to the calling you have placed upon our lives to be an influence in our neighborhoods, but more especially in our own homes. in ways that are positive, in ways that are influential, in ways that are visionary. Father, how grateful we are for your mercies. How grateful we are for the salvation that you have acquired for us through your Son, Jesus Christ. How grateful we are that we are not called to walk through this alone, but that your Spirit abides with us and your light shines the way before us. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. God bless you.